Hellarena. Novel by Ayed Hindi. Part 2. Chapter 6. The Funeral. During the lavish celebration at the King of Ouda Palace, a funeral alongside the banks of the great Kosh River was taking place. Stood Shamash, the revered priest and the head of the wise men, in the Galatians' kingdom, on a consecrated spot, to initiate and lead the last ceremonial duties to the dead soldier, which had to be done following their ancient rituals. The revered Shamash started to shout into the people gathered to mourn the death around him. Praise the dead, people who listen, praise the virtues of the death. Woman, your son is dead, but not for long. This is the ultimate price, the best thing ever to happen to our people. It is the gift of cleansing and reborn again, to worship and lead into this life. Living is whisper of time, and reborn after death is perpetual to the living virtues. We live to die and reborn in purity. Women, your son's soul will be the seed that will be carried by a virgin, to bestow the body who will carry his pure soul. Rejoice, cheer up and witness the ever-happening miracles. Remember, we came from a very far world where creatures live to die. Ebils, who was terrorizing our ancestors, held their souls captive, confined in a escapeless abyss. Fooled they were to believe him and his promise of eternal life. But here, he has no power. His incubus spirit can't do us harm no more. We are here. We reborn again inside this new world. Inside this holy enclosure, Hellarena, our soul would never depart away. We die to live forever. On Earthington, there's sadness and evil-doer there. Is our solemn and happiness here. Rejoice and celebrate our ultimate triumph upon time and destiny. Everyone beholds. The gathering trembled to hear Shamash eulogy to the dead soldier, as they started to lift the coffin to proceed with the rituals, and then they marched slowly towards the river. They stood still at the edge as Shamash waved his hand around the covered coffin, and upon a signal from him, they threw the body into the raging lava river. The body disappeared among the stream of fire, and the gathering started to shout in cheers. Bless the unborn, bless the raised soul, blessed Shamash. The gathering dispersed, only Shamash remains, alongside his deputy. Have you brought something to eat? He asked his deputy. You know we have to wait here until the soul complete its graceful journey inside our universe. Though it will not take long, the soul will emerge when the fire spews out the black dust. Yes, sir, I shall collect it with my hand. When it cooled off, into the cloth and hand it over to one of the girls. I did it many times before, sir. It is important to be precise and truthful, deputy. Our existence rely upon this ever-happening miracle. Look around you. You can see all of our world. Everything is around you. Our whole world is around us. The people of the confined world, our souls won't depart and wither away. Then Shamash turned away and started to pray in silence, waiting for the good news. Hashtag. Chapter 7. End of a long friendship. While the royal ceremony continued, King Avauda retreated from the great hall of the palace after his speech to General Zingi and left the guests to continue the lavish party and the huge celebration, as he wished to draw away back to his chamber, to settle few matters still hanging on into his mind, and to contemplate of what is yet to occur, accompanied closely by his special guard, Marketh, his shadow and executioner. They left together the grand hall, towards the royal chamber, and when they were alone at the place, the king asked him, Marketh, in the middle of the arrangements for my ceremony, I forgot to ask you something trivial. When you disposed Solomon's body, have you done the proper rituals as it written in our traditions? Yes, my lord, upon your orders, we have done the rightful rituals before throwing the deposed in the raging fire of the lava lake. After a mocking smile from both, the king said to him, Very appropriate. Go now and watch the audiences in the party and make sure everyone is happy and send me Shamash to the chamber. Yes, my lord. Marketh left the place in haste as King Avauda stood by the window of his castle, overlooking the great lava lake, watching the red bubbles emerging from the hell fire, and not very far, he could see the firework that was lighting the capital city skies in celebration of the new reign. but he turned when he heard a shallow voice creeping close to him. "Yes, my lord. You wanted to see me?" The king peered at Shamash, the head of the wise men, for a while, and then he asked him, "Tell me, blessed one, what you see in this concave horizon." As the king turned away and started to stare towards the lake, "I see happiness, my lord, the people showing their true feelings through that great manifestation of marvelous firework lighting the inner space. I wish you are now satisfied and contained with the course of matters, and it turned to your favor. My lord, at last your dream came true, and you are now the great king of the Galatians." Despite the implicit sarcasm, the king's answer was calm. "I am satisfied and happy, Shamash. I am pleased to finally be able to represent the true wishes of my beloved people, but I didn't mean that at all. I asked you what is the prospect, for me and for my people's future, the future. Fawning won't help your cause. Shamash, I am the king now regardless the odds of the infidels, and you are, as I know, a mindful person. Tell me the truth, what your senses are telling you right now." After a short period of hesitation, Shamash murmured with some words. "My lord, I feel joy and happiness as I see bright luminous horizon despite my soul senses' imminent departure." Shamash answered the king and then fell in silence, knowing in advance what fate the king is preparing for him. Avauda didn't waste much time and started to rebuke Shamash harshly for his role in the past and told him, "Though it is now too late to be sorry and to ask forgiveness of your turpitudes, but you should have realized earlier the cost of opposing my commands, remember. While I was busy fighting and exterminating the infidels and cleaning the given land, you were siding with the previous late dead king against my wishes and my wise decisions. Shamash, you knew very well what is written in the holy book. The final exodus won't happen among the sinners. We must cleanse our nation to deserve true salvation. Yet, you and your ex-ruler refused to follow the holy scriptures and my leadership. My lord, our faith is in the holy scriptures never diminished. We all under Red Minus's mercy, even if we living her in this confined place, far away from our land, upon Red Minus's will, there is no way of returning there only by Red Minus will, and together with the whole nations of the outcast. That is the real exodus as it written in the book of Eliad. The true salvation happens when all of us work and live together. Stop your delusional and confounded baleful hoaxes and wasteful speeches. These had poisoned the minds of some of our dear subjects. You and your last buried king wanted to instill among our beloved people that we are all equal and we are all the same class. He was totally wrong and dead. You cited him and mislead our people too, and you know that is never have been truthful. You have no place anymore in our new kingdom and among our beloved superior people. You despicable infidel, you will receive your deserved punishment." The king responded with exasperation. His anger replies forced Shamash to yield. The high priest dropped on his knees when the king started to shout. Danas, a sudden ghostly-like ghoulish warrior creature appeared from nowhere, brandishing a huge gleaming sword, and in a rapid move within splits of second, Shamash's head was rolling on that glossy floor beside his recumbent slain body, close to Avauda's feet. Then, the king went out to the terrace and he started to shout frantically, "Oh, Red Minus, I will never stop fulfilling your holy commandments until I shall join your throne in everlasting haven." But suddenly, the butchered head of Shamash, lying on the floor, spoke with a dwindling, groaning voice. "We are in haven. We are in hell." Chapter 8. The Old Sada. Pray only for blue plusive, the blue plusive that you know and you see, the blue plusive that can make the difference for your entire life and your final fate. Never lost your faith in his everlasting glory. Your miserable disbelief had brought all of these horrible, unstoppable disasters and the grim, dark fate upon your own self. We have tried always to warn you long time ago, but your ears were sealed with thick wax. Your mind was delusional. You have never listened and you never obeyed to the rules. You lived your life in total ignorance and deep doubt inside your souls, and your heart turned gradually into silent stone. Your soul turned to an empty desert. Though you could live freely without Blue Plusive's mercy lying upon you. Repent, my brothers, adore and admire the visible and all-glorious Blue Plusive, never too late. Though you have lost everything and now it is time to gain what is really important, it's only his mercy, and be grateful unto him, and make yourself a worthy of the enormous gifts to your own lost soul. An old and the only remaining Sada priest was walking alongside the crumbled and broken market street, shouting in agony and preaching in vain and sorrow to the oblivion people around him. No ears were ready to listen to his empty cries and nugatory demands. The Sada priest used to be the only visible channel and the valid means that would connect the people to the invisible holy powers, interpreting his masked gestures and describe his hidden wishes to the whole interested public, keep the old inherited law, and to serve the holy temples. That was long time ago, and since after Blue Plusive had stopped his interaction and his reciprocities with his people, it had been dried up and totally vanished. The Sada became consequently absolute and irrelevant in this broken society. They have been dropped from the high ranks they occupied and endured for centuries to a mere hopeless individual, lurking meekly in the streets, begging for attention and pleading for recognition. Times had passed and disasters ascended upon the people, hardened their hearts and wearied off their faith in Blue Plusive. They need more than a miracle to survive and more than words to fight the imminent threat of the vicious Galatians' troops. They have lost everything they once had, and there is nothing in their disposal to offer and scarify for any holy mercy. For them, it is a total doom and gloom. Melancholy is embodied upon the people's mind, and they need a real savor in these compelling, fatal circumstances. The old Sada clergy carried on his shouting from his desolate corner, passing by him some of his heedless and paled people, unaware of his presence despite his wailing, queuing in lines to receive food and providence to feed their empty guts. And what was interrupting his shouting was the noise of crying children and the roar of a few falling lava shells of the enemy's caterpillars inside the city. Listen to me, you have no other matter to be busy with. Even if you lose the human body, your soul shall set free from its confinement, and it will return to Blue Plusive power to implore his mercy and his forgiveness if he wishes. Look to yourself carefully, how much you have changed. Even your own colors had changed and became pale and ghostly. This is the reflections to your bitter and sour hearts. Fully throbbing with ignorance and doubts, have mercy upon your own selves before asking for mercy from any holy power. I feel deeply commiserated to see our people had end up gathered in the holes of eternal pain and misery in reciprocation for your disregard. On her way to the High Council building, Princess Lion was passing by to attend the council urgent meeting, and she stumbled upon the old Sada, who approached her carriage shouting, "Princess, have you prayed and paid your dues to Holy Blue Plusive?" The princess stopped her entourage and disembarked from her carriage and went to talk to the old Sada and told him, "Blessed one, I never forget my dues, but the Holy Blue Plusive had forgot us." The old Sada answered her, "He never forgets his finite creatures. Your ignorance made him shy away from us and not listening to our pleadings and our laments. Tell the people to gather and show their total obedience and conformity. Let the hard stone of arrogance be broken and present only modesty and humility towards Blue Plusive. You are the cornerstone of the truth, but I am not an ignorant. I heard you very well, and what can we do more? Now in this miserable situation we are living into and experiencing, we have prayed and we gave offerings and everything we had, and as you see where we are right now." Lion said, "I am telling you the truth I heard it from Eliad. Ask the people to gather in the temple, all in one heart and in one soul. Ask for mercy and forgiveness, and it shall be granted. It is a horrible torment cascaded heavily upon our all people, the old and the young, the rich and the needy. You implored this sad fate by forgetting the ancestry law and the old order. Your hearts filled with avarice and greediness, pathos on the living. Purify your souls, and you will survive." The old Sada approached the princess and spoke to her gently while holding her hands. "Ask for Marduk, and he will grant you victory. He will give the power over death. The immortal warrior's souls shall resurrect the dead and the uncorrupted flesh. Recite these prayers. He handed her a piece of paper. These are the promises from Eliad, the good man. The Sada said. Princess Lion, on hearing the old Sada, raised her hands and said, I shall request with all my heart to be a worthy audience with the holy Blue-Plusive. It could be a glimpse of hope that arise from that hallucinating old Sada priest, but in her mind, she was determined to cling on into whatever means of survival at hand, even an old book, as she had never heard of Mardak before. She went back to her carriage and continued on her way towards the council meeting that was planned with Barkle and the other representatives. The High Commanding Council of the Malini was holding an urgent meeting to discuss what would be their last preparations to defend themselves and to ponder other options if they can come up with, to stop the Galatians' looming invasion and to protect the remaining population from total extinction and maybe break the Galatians' ring of steel and fire that encompassing the bleeding city. Barkle headed the council together with his deputies. Princess Lion and Prince Kadorf and the other council members from the other clans were also present at that crucial meeting. He set out the meeting by telling the council about the imminent arrangements available at hand for those difficult times. Before attending this meeting, I spoke to the joint military leaders, who are at the helm of our brave defending troops at the front lines. They told me about the horror of facing the daily shelling from the enemy. They were in pessimistic state of mind about our remaining chances to hold even much longer in the face of a new aggression from the Galatians' troops. They told me also that they are running out of ammunition, fighters, and ideas. They felt the huge pressure and the great sacrifices that are mounting each day and in each hour, and that must be a big burden on our remaining troops on the frontiers. Then he followed. We need to muster something radical with utmost speed, or otherwise we are doomed here forever. Our last chances are fading away rapidly. It was a grim reminder from their leader Barkle about the current dire situation they experiencing at this moment, and without any surprise they were all in scarce of new ideas and low in deliberation over any saving plans, and the breakthrough Barkle was hoping to cling on with the leaders has just vanished and dissipated. Nevertheless, Princess Lion stood and spoke loudly to the council meeting and expressed her thoughts considering what they need to do to survive the sad end. Since our fortune'd been turned down as we all had fell out from Blue-Plusive own grace and we had suffered defeat after another, our people had been massacred brutally and their souls has been locked up into the deep Abyssington. Our fate had been left to Lord Norgel, bless him, the Lord of the upper eternal darkness. We had been thrown to the never-ending torment, deservedly in the hands of the Lord Norgel. Since we have no other choice other than keep asking and begging for mercy, we must find a way to protect our people now. We have to dig in our way. We have to build tunnels underneath and use it to attack the enemies outside the city and to protect the remaining people from the enemy shelling. We are surrounded, but our troops can move underneath and keep our essential providence safe. We should gather all of our people in a great sermon at the temple. We need to show our relentless reverence and sincere devotion. Our people will never give up the hope and will never succumb to the ill wills of the evil king of Auda. Our determination to survive has no end and our efforts to please Blue-Plusive is limitless. Our devotion must demonstrate our true love, appreciation, and our resolve to worship him endlessly and to display our readiness to fight to the bitter end. Our great gathering has to prove we are united and we will work together. We deserve to stay and live in this planet despite the unfair agreement with the evil of Auda. We are worthy to live our life and to have prosper future inside this planet. She took a breather and sat down, waiting for a collective approval from the council members of her wishes and plans, and she didn't wait for long as Barkle immediately supported her cause and congratulated her for her ideas, and he asked all other members in return to support her and to urge all the united clans to join the great gathering to please Blue-Plusive and ask for his mercy, and he insisted that it is never a lost cause and Blue-Plusive always listen to his people even if there is a convent with Avauda. All council members followed suit and supported Princess Lion and decided to ask their people to unite and parade their faith in Blue-Plusive at the great gathering that was planned to take place at the temple on a special worship day to mark they have never forgotten Blue-Plusive's memorable worship days. The meeting concluded on more optimistic tone among the gathered leaders. and even of a slight of hope that emerged lately, Princess Lion walked toward Barkle and asked him, "Blessed One, have you ever heard of Mardak?" "Yes, my daughter. He is a holy man endowed with sacred powers, but his presence in this world is enigmatic and no one knows where he is and how to speak to him. I have not either seen him or know anyone who ever met him. He is a legend and everyone wishes for his holy apparition." Chapter 9. The Daring Mission. The news rapidly spread inside the besieged city, and the people gathered in multitude to show solidarity with Princess Lion and to be more resolved in to start the new plan as they created a working group to begin digging and to create the tunnels network underneath the city. Everyone was hopeful, and that brought them even closer as by now they have a target to achieve. But knowingly in advance through his insider spies and multi-accomplices within the Malinese people, about the planned digging of the tunnels and most importantly about the supposed gathering at the big holy temple in Zediapolis City to try eventually to avert the doomed, dark and bloody fate waiting for them, and to break the convent, and to save what is left of their people. The Galatians' king, Evauda, decided after counseling only himself to send his military troops secretly in clandestine mission to infiltrate the gathered people inside the city in the midst of the agitation and the ongoing chaos in there, and to bring him the important information he eagerly needs to know about that planned gathering of worshippers to Blue Plusive and what might Blue Plusive response would be to the Malinese prayers and their desperate plight and approach to him in a last attempt to alter their anticipated final nearing total demise of that doomed world. The king was seemingly worried and anxious to the idea of that conglomeration and had probably a premonition that Almighty Blue Plusive would alter his stance and might just be softened and sympathize with the defeated nations despite the holy convent that was made between them in the past to exterminate all nations inside that planet, and accordingly Blue Plusive agreed for the Galatians to rule the entire world and to get hold of all the resources as well, and he also ceded some powers to the evil king to enable him achieving his heinous brutal ends. King Avauda ordered his military spies consequently to infiltrate and annihilate Princess Lion and the other leaders at that planned prayers event in front of all worshippers because he thought it would be the most appropriate chance to mark them in the public, and that would presumably end his tense moments before his army would attack the surrounded city while the people in there distracted by their own mayhem and total chaos following the assassination of their leaders. After through deliberation, the king decided within himself to send Ravdan, his son-in-law and the head of the Special Royal Brigade, accompanied alongside him with Grimo, the head of the assassin's squad and among other professional soldiers to the surrounded city, and he gave his orders to Marketh to inform them to prepare for this important and vital mission without disclosing the secrets. He gave no explanation of his bold move to anyone but his daughter, Kara, who came into his sanctuary upon hearing that her man would be sent to the besieged city and asked permission to speak to the king, and as she was allowed subsequently, she burst in tears while she was kneeling in front of her father the king, and she asked him directly in timid voice, "Father, blessed, why you are sending my only true love away from me? You know, Father, there is only one way to cross into the city, and that is through the Valley of the Confined Souls, and no one ever had crossed that place alive. It is Lord Norgel's sacred enclosure. Are you fed up with Ravdan? Did you found someone else better to replace him? What about me? Father, please answer me." She wept on her father's shoulders while he was listening to her complaints. He took a deep sigh and told her, "No, my daughter, I'm not putting Ravdan's life in danger. I need him to complete this mission because I trust only him in this critical time. Why don't you send Grimo, your new friend?" She interrupted him with nervous voice and continued yelling, "He had done many missions before for you, and he is more experienced than Ravdan. Don't question my decisions, Kara. Grimo will accompany Ravdan in this mission. We need to complete this serious mission, my daughter. We have to get rid of those infidels to secure the final victory for our nation. It takes courage and determination to achieve our goal. You are very nervous and agitated right now, and I promise you he will come back to you safe and sound. You know my holy convent? He gave permission, and Blue Plusive will look after him and make sure Ravdan will cross safely. The Great Cave and the Valley of Souls. Ravdan is a bright soldier. and he is the only one I know that can pass this test with blessing of the great Lord Norgel. In this case, my father, if you may, I will join my man in his mission. I am not afraid or more precious than him. Don't complicate the mission even more than it's, my dear daughter. She left the chamber before her father finished his words, and, in her way out, she stumbled with Garov, who came to speak to the king, and after kneeling down in respect, the king allowed him. Come in, Garov. My lord, is Princess Kara upset? She is stupid and stubborn like her deceased mother. She is living an imaginary love dream. And she wants to go alongside Ravdan to the besieged city. Would you allow her, sir? She can go if she wants to. At the end, I have kingdom to run. I can't look after everyone. She is old enough to share the responsibility. I'm very stressed. Garov, please me now and gently relieve my worried body. Yes, sir. The king dropped his white garment and reposed himself on the sofa, and his body was relaxed on the cozy silky settee, while Garov started to rub his body gently with precious oil. Sir, if I may ask, why the worries? You know, I should have used the full force of my powerful bombardment in my army possession in order to finish off the cowards hiding in there earlier and for good, but only because I am not sure their piece of land, which they are holding for now, can withstand my forces, and this part of the planet could and would eventually collapse. We shall all be doomed. They saved their ugly skins by hiding out there. I have to kill them all one by one. That is why I need to send my troops inside their fortress. Sir, do you really think they can cross into the Great Valley safely? You mean Ravdan and his company? Oh yes, they shall conquer and prevail as usual. That is the promise from Blue Plusiv, and with my blessing, they shall cross safely in there. The place is sacred but not impregnable. I crossed it before, though with special permission. You know, sir, that the Great Cave and the other undergrounds, the shelters in there are controlled by the despicable, the anarchists, and they don't hold much discipline or any kind of respect for Blue Plusiv or anyone else. Have you made any offer for them to let Ravdan pass safely? Marketh spoke to their leader Janice. She told him that if he paid the heavy charges they required, Ravdan and his company would pass safely, but she conceded that they couldn't guarantee their safety in the Valley of the Souls. She also told him that if Ravdan stuck in there, they would not be able to help him in his plight. That is not a good sign, sir. I gave Ravdan my special amulet to help him, confronting and expelling the angry souls, pawned in there by Blue Plusiv orders. It was blessed by Mardak, the keeper of the holy book. I hope it will work, sir. The king looked at Garov angrily and rebuffed him in harsh words, saying, Never underestimate the powers of Blue Plusiv Almighty, Garov. You know how hard I worked to get my sacred convent with Blue Plusiv, who accepted it in generosity and that never occurred before in the past, and made it rightfully for me. And by no means we should ever doubt our resolve to keep our part of the arrangement with Blue Plusiv. Beside, you will be more ever happy if they fail to return, wouldn't you, Garov? No, sir. Never pass my conscience such horrible outcome. My body start to quaver intensely just because what would you think about me, my lord? Then he started to weep and continued. You know, your majesty, I don't hate Ravdan, on the contrary, but I'm worried and that is why I am inquiring a lot. I wish you, sir, to forgive me keep asking you such stupid questions about him. I love Princess Kara like my own sister, and I don't want anything to harm or upset her, my lord. He is under my mercy and Blue Plusiv protection. You idiot. Keep rubbing and don't stop concentrating on your duty. He will return safe and sound, like all our brave soldiers. After all, what eunuch like you would know and understand about virtues the like daring and fearless in this vicious world we live unto? Now are you finished? Go on and call for the clowns. I want them to entertain me. I will be at the throne chamber. Chapter 10. The Mutineers. Under a hazy luminary light that covers the morning concaved empty skies inside the planet. Ravdan and his unit left the military base where they were stationed earlier, after receiving blessings from King Avauda, the supreme commander of all the Galatians armies, accompanied by Princess Kara, his wife and the daughter of the king. among Grimo and a few other special guards. Carrying their own unique lethal weapons and headed towards the army front lines of the battled armies in a small guarded entourage. As they got there, they climbed a small dune and managed to cross into the buffer zone that separates the fighting armies. Maneuvering between the small volcanic craters that spread in the surroundings, some of which were filled with lava, crossing between wooden trees and some bulky rocks that obscured them from the enemy's vigilant eyes. They sneaked towards the great lava river Kosh, which flows downstream and crosses into the Great Cave in its own course through the Great Hasford Mountains at the Zediopolis city fringes. They reached the raging riverbanks after an extensive period of hard walking, and then Ravdan ordered the soldiers to drop the special riding floating rafts they brought with them into the lava river. But before they did so, Jerome the assassin asked Ravdan, his military leader, "Sir, what is the plan to cross the Great Cave, if I may ask?" He looked worried when he asked his question, and Ravdan noticed the anxiety in his voice, and he answered him in a robust, harsh voice. "First, I have to go alone by myself while you will follow me. Then I will give up my weapons and hand them over to the mutineers who are waiting for us as a gesture of trust between both of us, and they will return our weapons after we complete the crossing inside the cave where we will get right down to the bridge, and that is what you have to do all as well after me." "Can we trust them, sir? I mean, the mutineers. After all, they are also our enemies, and they are rebellions by nature." "We don't have other choice, Jerome. We have to cross through their territory, and it's the king's orders to do so, and also, Marketh has arranged for a deal with them, and they granted our passage through their neutral territory," Ravdan said. Princess Kara, who accompanied the attacking group, was also very worried as she was listening to her man, and she looked at Ravdan, her husband, and asked him again in a trembling and jittery voice that reflected her anxiety about the mission. "Would they take us as hostages and maybe surrender us to the Malini? They are not trustworthy, and they can make another deal with the Malini as well as they have done with us." "Not possible, Princess Kara. They can't and won't do what is on your mind. We had a deal beforehand, and they received what they had demanded as requested previously. Don't be worried about them for now. They are not the only danger waiting for us on this journey." Ravdan was in his depths, more anxious about the difficult and delicate undertaking. They have to go through the Valley of the Souls and the turmoil and pain that they would have to endure throughout the ominous and perilous jaunt, and he could not share all of these bitter, apprehensive thoughts with her at that moment in time. He ordered everyone to be ready as they stood on the raging river's bank, and then he scaled the secured raft gently, holding Robs attached to it, and he started to descend slowly and gradually with the flow towards the great cave opening, which was in his sight and not very far from where he started his journey. It was pale daylight and faded red sky all around him as he was balancing himself over the raft onto the raging lava river, and when he approached the huge cave-arched entrance, he anchored his raft to a salient stalagmite near the cave entrance and disembarked while the mutineers turned up and took all his weapons when he was carefully searched, and then they allowed him to enter the cave while the others of his company were following from a distance and had done the same by surrendering their own weapons to the anarchists. The company gathered and started marching into the cave, slowly following the mutineers' troops to guide them through the narrow rugged passage leading into a dim orange light, reflected from the mixture of the crammed golden high ceilings of the cave and the red lava river that crossed the cave while they were walking along its bank. It was a quite long distance to walk into the cave, careening between rocks and stalagmites and slithering into many tunnels that are the homes for the mutineers, and by each tunnel opening stood the mutineers armed and fully prepared to fight. Ravdan and his company kept walking, and they were amazed by the glittering rays that emanated from the ceiling and the walls, which are totally covered and ornamented with precious golden plates, presenting riches and sophistication. The Galatians' leader dared to ask his accompanied guide about the engraved golden covering of the cave walls and ceilings, for it seemed pointless to waste all that golden extravagance inside such an empty hidden hole. After all, it were merely a huge cave, nothing more than that in his opinion. The ceilings are so beautifully ornamented and wholly crafted. The place seemed to be covered with so much precious gold. Obliviously, you admire your caves so much, isn't it? It's our holy city, that's what you mean. It is our place of living, and it is our own temple of worship and our holy place. As you have noticed, we do not receive the light as you people do outside in Hellarena. This gold helps to reflect the light inside the cave and gives us the energy and vitality we need. However, this metal is abundant in here, and it is better to use it in a useful way. Answered him, the leader of the mutineers group. It was a very long walk, and they needed to rest sometimes in between, until they reached the rigged stone bridge that crosses the river Kosh, where it turns into a great falling lava. At that spot, they saw the gates to the bridge, and everyone had to stop as the journey with the mutineers was about to end. But suddenly the mutineers' leader, Janice, a tiny yet well-built girl with short dark hair, covered with thick clothing and carrying weapons around her waist and her back, appeared from one of the tunnels, accompanied by her fellow anarchist guards, and she spoke directly to Ravdan without introduction. I see you are about to cross the bridge to the valley, brave one, or should I say, quite imbecile. It's almost a precipice and an end for a young soldier like you if that is a consolation. Ravdan, broiled in by her cynical remarks, could not do much about her comments. Also, he had no weapons to demonstrate his discord and was surrounded by a multiplicity of heavily armed fighters from the mutineers. Add to that, she was not his target, so he had to let it go, and he answered her. At last, you showed up at the end of our journey, Janice. I didn't expect much cordial meeting from you. Maybe in the future we would have better exchanges between us. Have you thought over it and decided to change your mind and join us? Janice laughed and replied to him, join your troops? It's an unthinkable preposition, and it's against our principles. We took a quite good ransom to let you cross our land and for you to face your judgments. Our people are happy and immune here from your king's unpredicted whims. Our souls are immortal, not like yours. We live in a solid, strong community. But do tell me what she is doing here? Janice pointed at Princess Kara. She will accompany us in our journey through the valley towards the besieged city. Ravdan answered her. Did her father ever tell you that a weak person like her wouldn't be able to cross the bridge? It's a curse, and it's against the rules and all the costumes we are staunchly determined to keep. You can take your own chances alongside your companions to cross that bridge, but we are the guardians of the Holy Gate, and we will not cause offenses to the Holy Valley by allowing her to cross. She will be returned to your king. She is brave enough to decide by herself where to go and take responsibility for her own deeds, not by hiding in a golden cave. Janice started to laugh again, and then turned to Princess Kara. You will stay here for a while, and we will deliver you to your father. After all, it's our uncommon chance to pull more from your father on your royal behalf. You made a promise to Marketh, and he paid you very well. Ravdan protested to Janice. Yes, I promised, but he didn't mention anything about the princess. Our conditions for your passage were clear and strict, with no alterations or amendments. It was a last-minute adjustment to our mission, and I wanted her to come along with me. Janice, the anarchist leader, seemed to be quite fed up after the long argument with Ravdan about what she thought was trivial and not included in the deal, and she ordered her deputies and her loyal guards. I don't want to hear more of your drivels. It is a sin and grave danger for anyone to pass through the Valley of the Souls. Take the girl now and inform Marketh that we have a special delivery for him, and you, as she was talking to Ravdan, take your men and weapons and continue your doomed journey, and listen, don't ever look back. You might bring a very bad omen to our brave soldiers and our people. But Princess Kara, as she was listening to this unexpected news and the other possibility of not seeing Ravdan any more in the future, was crushed into tears and sorrow and tried to break to her departing lover, but the guards were surrounding her like a chain, and her man shouted desperately, don't cause her any harm, please, Janice. I know you have some sympathy for lovers. Janice calmed Princess Kara down and spoke gently to her. Don't worry, both of you. In fact, we are doing you a very big favor to you, Princess Kara, and that is to absolve you from your stupid attempt to cross that bridge, and in return for our sensibility and ultimate shrewdness, your father has to pay us really dear. Now, go. Her guards started to push Ravdan and his company away, and as he was driven, he shouted again in desperation, although he was forced towards the bridge's gates. "I will be back for you, Kara. I promise you." "He doesn't know where he is about to go." Janice replied with loud giggles and pitiless chuckles toward Ravdan and his company. The mutineers returned the weapons to him and his guards and accompanied them to the bridge gate at the edge of the endless, deep cliffs. The mutineers stopped and held up in their guarding positions in there, allowing the company to set out with their dangerous bridge crossing. Kara was roughly handcuffed and led forcibly inside one of the tunnels as she was waiting to hear about her own fate at the hands of the mutineers. She was much calmer after the monuments when her man had to leave her, as she seemed to surrender her fortunes to unknown consequences yet, but she decided to gather her remaining courage and defend herself if she needed to. The guards brought her some food and drink, and when Janice came to see her, she ordered to release her handcuffs, sat beside her and asked, "Tell me, Kara, did you really decide by yourself to come down here, or did your man bring you to get rid of you? Answer me honestly." Kara looked at Janice in a strange way and told her, "How dare you thinking in this way about my honest and brave man?" Surprisingly, I decided to join them in their dangerous mission, and no one ever would dare to force me. I am the king's daughter, but I am ready to face any danger with my man. I am not afraid of you or anything lurking there in the valley. It's good to hear that, my ransom princess. Now enjoy our hospitality here while we arrange for your departure back to your kingdom. End of part 2.